welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, and I am streaming live from the Team Needham Abode podcast studio. And I am super excited to have Frank Lobb on our podcast today. He wrote a book, The Big Lie in My Healthcare Bill, and I am excited to learn more about that. If you guys follow us on social media or our podcast, you know how we talk about how the healthcare system, billing insurance is a complete scam and a complete ripoff. And Frank is going to tell us how to get out of that scam. So Frank, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you much for having me. I look forward to the conversation.
So tell us a little bit. I was reading your bio and a little bit about your history. Tell us a little bit about your history and introduce yourself to our guests.
Well, I've done an awful lot of things in my life, and when somebody asks me what I've done or who I am, I have a hard time answering it because I've done so much. But what happened to me a number of years ago was I had my first wife was very ill. She needed health care, and our insurer said they wouldn't cover it. And I said, fine, I'll pay for it. And I was told I couldn't. And she died after 3 hospitals telling me they wouldn't accept my money. And I'm not an easy person to say no to. And it infuriated me. And so I took them into court. And I sued for something like 8 years, and they'll tell you I lost, which is in the court sense true. But on the other hand, there's a discovery process. And I hope to share with your audience what I learned in reading their internal documents. And I'm going to suggest that you're not going to find another person who has read them, because they're secret. And it takes an awful lot of work to get access to them. And then you really need to have the skill, and I do have the experience, to know what I was reading and how to put them together. So the book is really a compilation of what I learned, along with the fact that we talk reform, but this is a $4.3 trillion market. And the likelihood that we're going to see substantial reform is about zero. The good news for your audience and patients is that the laws that existed for our parents are still there. So our rights to care and coverage are still what they were for our parents if we know how to apply them. And it's not very hard. We just have to know a few things. So when I wrote the book is intended to help you understand what healthcare insurance really is, because it's nothing like what they tell you. And then on the backside, how to take the law and apply it for yourself, and the terms that they have in the contracts that actually are favorable to you, and then turn the system around where you get the care that you're owed and the billing that you're owed, which means you don't pay for the care that your doctor says is necessary. Long as your doctor says it's necessary health care, which is obvious because he's not allowed to give you anything but necessary health care. He can be sued if he does. So whatever you get is necessary health care, essentially by definition. And those contracts say that if it's necessary health care, the insurance company gets the right to decide if they want to pay for it. And if they don't, they can't bill the individual.
So tell me a little bit about what you found out during discovery. I imagine you found out some pretty nefarious and evil stuff going on.
Well, it's an interesting story. And one of the things I try to do is not point fingers and just be another person throwing brickbats.
Yeah.
The way we got here, it really wasn't some grand nefarious conspiracy. It just, if you go back to where health insurance started, it was all the payment, all the care you needed for a simple monthly payment. And it existed like that for quite a few years, long enough that they've never been able to move away from it, or at least the perception that you make a monthly payment and you get all the care you need. Just look at the TV ads.
Yeah.
But in around the late 1980s, they learned 2 things. One, it was getting expensive to provide all the care people need. And if they could deny care, they could make more money. So in around 1990, they started writing contracts. And it gets a little more complicated than we need today, but every state adopted a pattern or a template contract So the contracts across the country are identical, except for a few nuances that attorneys throw into language, but they don't change anything. So for our purposes, they're identical. And what they say repetitively is that the doctor or the hospital has to give you all the care you need as medically necessary. The insurance company then gets to decide how much they want to pay for it, up to zero. And what they fail to pay, they can't bill to you. And that's what they don't dare let you know, because what I do and what I help people do and what the book does is simply send a letter per the recommendations of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Please help me understand the accuracy and appropriateness of my bill, because you're not allowed to bill me. And I'd like to see the detailed accounting, which they can't give you either. And then if you throw in the thing called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it says that if they don't answer you, they can't enforce the bill and they could be fined. Well, they can't answer the bill. They don't dare. And the problem is, if they even open the discussion, they get into an area they don't dare disclose in the public. Because if everybody knows they can't be billed, what does the healthcare system do? Now, I don't want to get into that. I pay my bills. I don't short anybody. But I am sitting in our family business and we pay our bills.
Right.
But I don't pay $1 more than the contract says I have to pay, right? And all I'm saying in the book is the contract says I don't owe it. So why should I pay it?
And I will tell you, Frank, so I've had experiences with hospitals when my youngest son was hurt, broke his leg. And as you were kind of mentioning, trying to get detailed bills, because we were paying out of pocket and we get reimbursed from a health sharing ministry. So I wanted to just to make sure that I wasn't getting billed for anything that wasn't necessary. And trying to get a detailed bill to start with was like pulling teeth. I mean, and then trying to ask them about some of the appropriateness of charges was the same. And so we went round and round about it. Unfortunately, most people are not as dedicated as I am, or they don't know the system like I do, that they can actually negotiate those bills. I have another story with a family member who wanted the same thing, detailed bills and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, they threatened to send them collection. And then once he kind of started digging into it, and some of their information didn't make sense, like the stuff they were saying it was gonna be charged for, and he was charged more for it, and their price on their website didn't match, the bill. All of a sudden, they just stopped communicating with him, and then all of a sudden, he didn't have to pay the bill.
That's what happens,
right? And I think what they know is they know what you know. And it's like, if this guy goes down this road, he's not going to have to pay the bill. And at first he was like, well, I want to pay my bills just like you. I want to pay my bills if I'm owed something. But I told him this, if they were a straight up company and they were doing things that were ethical and billing you ethically, this wouldn't happen. But this is happening because they know that there is a problem with their billing system. They know they overcharge people at least tenfold, and for things sometimes that were not necessary. So you go.
Absolutely right. I've known about this for a fair piece of time, and the reason I wrote the recent book is because the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has come out and found healthcare bills so inaccurate. They call them rife with error. They recommend that we challenge every bill we get for accuracy and appropriateness. 50% of the family bankruptcies in the country are a healthcare bill.
And let's add to that. Sorry to interrupt you, but let's add to that. Most of those patients have health insurance.
Yes.
Right. So when the government and the media talks about all these uninsured people going bankrupt, most of the people that file medical bankruptcy have health insurance, correct?
Yeah. I mean, what we have is they have a beautiful situation. And if you say fraud around an attorney, they typically get upset because fraud's so difficult to prove in court because you need to show intent. I would love to go into court. I'm not an attorney, but some people say I'm a pretty good one. I'd love to go into court and argue fraud against the insurance industry because they're lying to us and they know they're lying to us.
I agree.
It's intent in spades. And where you really find it. It started off easily where the insurance companies just started, well, we won't pay everything. Okay. Like we won't pay for the weekend because you weren't treated on the weekend and you're in there for 10 days and through a weekend, but the insurance company won't pay for the weekend. Well, that's fine. So yes, you had signed that little piece of paper that says you're responsible for whatever the insurance doesn't pay. So you think you owe it.
Yeah. So
this is a win-win in the early days because the insurance company saves some money. The provider bills you pay, and everybody wins but the patient.
Yeah.
Right. And you need to throw into this mix, if it's a big bill, like the bills got worse and worse and worse, and the insurance company felt more and more empowered to expand on this. In other words, not pay at all in some cases, which throws things into bankruptcy when families just can't pay the bill. There's a thing called the 30-day rule. In other words, a bill, if it's more than 30 days and 30 days old and has not been properly disputed in writing, is accurate in the eyes of the court. Now, it gets a little muddy whether this is in collection or in simply from the original provider. However, there's a real muddy line between what's collection and what's the provider, particularly since providers have gotten into the collection business.
Yep.
Okay. So what I argue is, let's not get into this mix. When you get the bill, you send it and comply with the 30-day rule, because it has to go into the record. And now you have properly contested the bill accuracy and appropriateness, and they can't take it anyplace. They can't send it to collection. Collection people won't touch it as long as that's in the record. But if you don't do that, you make phone calls and you jump up and down and huff and puff, the bill is being made accurate. And so when they finally really come after you, you're toast. It's over. You just don't know it. So it's a great scam. This little letter that you write, or it's signed, I agree to pay whatever they don't pay. You can't sell a bridge twice. And they signed a contract that doesn't allow them to bill you. They just don't want you to know it. And once they understand, and just to the point you made, once they understand that you know the game, they go away. And I'll give you a good case in point. It's a little different, but not much. Medicare is not really that much different, in the sense that if coverage is denied and you got the care, you can't be billed.
Right.
That's the law. Well, I had a small operation, and I was in the operating room, and they came in with a card machine and wanted $3,000 to complete the operation. So I have 4 different policies, so I had a little trouble understanding how I had to come up with $3,000, but it was very obvious I had to come up with the $3,000 or get up and leave the operation. So I gave him a credit card, but when I came out, I immediately contested the bill. They surrendered that bill immediately. I got the money back immediately. They never once tried to justify the bill. I got 2 letters asking me to come back for a follow-up procedure, which I chose to go someplace else to have done. And then I got a birthday card. So,
well, and how many people, Frank, did they get away with billing and they just didn't call them out on it? I mean, you're probably a 1% of the population that actually calls them out on this kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. we had my wife and I were traveling, and we had breakfast in a an overnight place that provided breakfast. Anyway, we're sitting there with a husband and wife that were both doctors out of Washington, D.C. And I had to talk healthcare where my wife kicked me under the table. But I said, how big a ripoff is it on this situation I just described, where the insurance pays as little as they can, and the hospital bills you for what it doesn't get paid, and so forth. And they both broke out laughing. And they said that 64%, in their judgment, of the bill is created in the billing office. And it is a big ripoff. And it's just a system. I have breakfast regularly with a gentleman who was the head of billing for the largest hospital in our region. And he's read my book, and he says it's dead on. And what he would do if he got a letter like I have in the book, he would just trash the bill because there's no place to go with it. Yeah. And he had one other thing. In the back of the book is a contract. It's the only one you'll ever find. And I was able to write it because I have enough legal background to be able to make it close enough to the contracts that it tells you what's in them, but they can't claim I copied a contract because it isn't specific to anybody. But you can read it and know exactly what's in those contracts. And I defy you to find one anyplace else, because in those contracts, there's a utilization review provision. So you could get approved care, they could pay for the bill, and 60 days later, they could look at it and go, that's hurting our bottom line. We're going to change our mind. Withdraw the approval, demand that the money be paid back, and if it's not, claw it back and come after the parties. So if you really want to understand, are they serious about raking this money back and hurting the patient? You bet they are. And if you go looking for utilization reviews, the one that sticks in my mind, it's a few years old, but is a woman had a $1.3 million operation that they approved, and then they changed their mind under a utilization review and charged her for it. Wow. And she was happy because her attorney got her off only paying $300,000. Okay, and I'm looking at this. This is crazy. Yeah. They had no right to bill her in the first place, and it's black letter law.
It is. It's. I mean, I will tell you, Frank. And I say this, and I probably don't make any friends by saying it, but those practices are evil. I really think what they're doing is evil, and that's why I think anytime you can, you need to call them out on it, and people need to question. Just like you say, they don't pay. There's another phrase going around: never pay the first bill, and that's kind of what you were saying. Is the first time you get the bill, question it, and then get some kind of email correspondence or something in writing about wanting more detailed billing or something like that, and then that conversation starts. And they're just and you talked about collection too, and this is what I want to say, and I want you to expand on it. A letter threatening to send you to collection is not collection.
No.
And they will send those threatening letters time and time again as scare tactics, but it's not collection. And there's some rules about collection, just like you said, and they know it. Collection agencies won't take certain things that are, I don't know what the term is. I don't want to say fraudulent because, like you say, that's a powerful word. But they won't take things like, they just don't take anything because they know they can't legally collect on it. No. So hospitals can threaten all they want with these collection letters, but that doesn't mean you're in collection.
That's correct. But you really, I think, need to be careful in encouraging people just to sort of not pay it, or at least allow people to think you can just not pay it. This system's very smart. There are 77,000 billing codes. Okay. So if you have a major hospital bill, like just been in the hospital for 3 days and you've been through what, $40,000 in bills, that's about the number they throw around. And you just try to ignore it,
Oh yeah, no.
you're in trouble, because
Yeah,
this system
absolutely.
is set up to come after you. And what they have on their side is that after 30 days, the bill is considered enforceable. So if they take it into court, you're done. Now, what I say is, as soon as you get the bill, go back and ask for a proof of accuracy and appropriateness.
Yep.
You're not going to get it, but you put it in the record. And so
Yeah.
the 30-day clock doesn't start. You shut the 30-day clock down. They know they can't send it to collection because the collection agency won't take it. Okay. And you basically short circuit the whole system. Now, I'm not trying to reform the system. I'm just trying to help people understand there's a contract out there that they have every right to enforce. They're third-party beneficiaries. And in every other system, anyone you ever want to name, if I asked for the third-party rights to a contract I was party to, not a party to, but I was a third party to, I would get those terms and conditions. However, I can't get them to a medical health care bill, or what I should say, insurance. I can't get that contract. That contract is kept secret. I'll tell you a funny one.
Wow.
Not too long ago, my wife and I had dinner, and we actually ate at a country club we go to, and we were sitting at the bar having breakfast or having dinner. Anyway, there was a guy sitting next to me, and I had an early copy of my book with me, and he looked at it and he started asking a couple of questions. So we broke into a conversation. To make a long story short, he was having fun with me because he was so smart. He knew he was from the industry. That was clear.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to show how stupid I was to be a big lie on a healthcare bill. And as soon as he realized I had read those contracts, he didn't even finish his dinner.
He left?
He left. I asked him for a card, and he just abruptly got up and walked out of the restaurant. I mean, he didn't finish his dinner. I can tell you another one. I was in a reception line at a wedding, and it was with the head of a large hospital, and he was just bitching left and right about the difficulty in collecting bills and this and that, and the insurance industry and so forth. And when he found out that I had read the contracts and understood the system actually better than he did, he did nothing but try to avoid me for the rest of the evening, because I asked him for a business card. I'll give it to you as soon as I get my coat. No. I had fun with him because I knew he wasn't going to give it to me. So I went out of my way to ruin his day.
Well, I want to say is that, for all the people that partake in the game, the people inside the system that say it's so hard to get paid, and it's so, you already mentioned it. There's 77,000 different codes. They're the ones that play the game. They make it difficult by design. They make it more complicated than it really has to be.
Absolutely.
I think one of the telltale signs, and this is not exactly on the billing part, but on the first transactional part. Go to a hospital. This is just the kind of business that they do, and there's no other business like this. Go to a hospital and say, hey, I need a left total knee revision. How much is that going to cost? Oh, I don't know. It depends. It depends on how they code it. Depends on how your doctor does this. Like, look, that's not transparent. They love to hide behind non-transparent billing. And I would almost guarantee you, Frank, 100% of the time, patient A, patient B, they do the exact same surgery. I guarantee you, no complications, same time, all that kind of stuff, same hospital. I guarantee you those two bills would be different.
Right.
Now, explain that to me. I mean, if I go to XYZ car lot and, I want a complicated piece of machinery, like a new car, which is a very complicated piece of machinery, they don't say, well, it's complicated. They tell me that it's $49,999. And if I want the gold wheels, I can add an extra $5,000 or whatever. They tell us the price. There's transparency and there's no surprises. I don't get a bill from the car dealership 6 months later saying this part wasn't really covered on your initial purchase, so you owe this now, right? Surprise bills all the time in these places. I mean, this is the evil stuff that goes on. They hide behind non-transparency and surprise bills, and it's got to stop.
Well, I'm going to argue one of the things that always kind of gets my hits my hot button is it's got to. No, it doesn't. In other words, it should, but these people have the bit in their teeth, and this has been around a long time, and there's an awful lot of money being made. And I'm going to argue is that there was a part of my life when I went to war against the Clean Air Act. And I really did change the Clean Air Act single-handedly. But I shouldn't say it quite like that, because I, at the time, worked for DuPont. So I could ask for a meeting with the Secretary of EPA and make a presentation to the Secretary and threaten to sue them as DuPont, which I did, if they didn't comply, because they were failing basically to comply with their own instructions from Congress. So I could put 6 words on the board and saying, you're doing just the opposite. And if you don't come back and comply with Congress, we'll sue you and you'll lose. On the other hand, if you want to go forward, we'll help you do it in compliance with Congress. You really need to take that approach here, because if you try to fight the system, okay, to correct it, if you want to get down in the grass on 77,000 billing codes that they can't even agree among themselves how to bill them or how to allocate them, they will lose you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay. Forgive me and your audience, I am good at solving problems. I've done too many in my lifetime. And too many people have told me I'm good at it. I can take a problem apart and find the critical points. But don't get me in a software discussion at the programming level. I don't understand enough of the language, the terminology. I don't have the science behind it. They can lose me in a heartbeat. 30,000 feet looking down at it, different case. So what I'm going to argue here is we don't want to get dragged into the who charged who for what, and was it the right code or the wrong code. If you get into that discussion, you're going to lose. It'd be easier just to call them and say, I'll pay you as long as I get a 30% discount. I guarantee you'll get at least 20.
And that's what I tell people to do, because that's pretty easy to do. Yes.
That's easy.
Yeah.
And then what I'm advocating through the book is you don't owe it. And once you raise that issue, you handcuff the other side, because they want you down in the grass so that your 30-day clock is running. And at the end of the 30 days, you owe it. It's over, and you don't even know it. And then the only question is the bill big enough to take to collection? Because they're not going to take a $100 bill to collection, but they're sure going to take a $30,000 or $40,000 bill, which is not that hard to acquire, and you know that as well or better than I do. So what I've tried to do with the book is help people understand just how much of a fraud or con the system is. But on the other hand, tell people how to make it work. Because what I found is that I always let my doctors know how much I know about the system. And I've never had a doctor who doesn't appreciate the fact that I can talk to them about it and help both of us function within it. Okay?
Right, right.
And the minute you get into a billing discussion with anyone in the system that does billing, oh boy, do they want out of it. Like the examples I gave you, you walk into a counter and you go up, you're coming into an office, and the lady in the front gives you a little form to fill out that says, I agree to pay for everything that my insurance doesn't pay. And you say to them, this isn't appropriate. Watch how fast it gets yanked back. It'll vanish before you can snap your fingers, because it's not only not appropriate, it's illegal. Okay, in my case, I'm a Medicare guy. They cannot use that form. It can't. You've heard of ABNs, advanced billing.
Yeah, advanced beneficiary notice. Yep.
Uniformly, they can't take me and just have me sign one for the hell of it.
Right.
Okay, that's against the law. Anyway, if you understand what they're doing and that first of all, the doctor works for you, not the insurance company and not the big hospital. His license is to you. And once he understands you understand that, I've found that they treat me very differently.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because he's accountable to me, not to his doctor. Now, the doctors is an interesting situation. On one hand, they're not allowed to see you more than 15 minutes in the big systems anymore. My doctor sat down, literally buried his head in his hands and said, Frank, I remember a time when I'm old enough to remember a time when I could take care of my patients.
Right.
They won't let me anymore. The doctor today that we think of as the family physician is a PCP, primary care physician. And he is only allowed to keep you from getting sick and then treat only the most minor ailments. Anything serious, he has to refer you somewhere else.
Yep. Right. Yep.
He can't put you in the hospital, and he can't follow you in the hospital. Now, that is such a departure from what it was not that many years ago. And what we have is a situation where the system is pushing the doctor so hard to in and out, 14, 15 minutes. If we can cut it down to 10 minutes, we can make more money.
Yeah. And I think the average now is what is going around is 7 minutes. They say the average doctor spends 7 minutes with a patient now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's somebody sitting at a computer trying to figure out how we can cut one more minute out.
Right. Literally. Right. And I mean, that's a topic for a whole other podcast about how the insurance companies have done that so they can literally make the doctors more productive so the insurance company can make more money.
So they can make more money because the game is
really,
and it's the same. One of the things that's really lost sight of is American industry is greedy. It's our system. And whether you like it or not, it's the system. So I'm going to accept it. But on the other hand, every place I've ever worked was pretty much honest. The healthcare insurance industry is not.
Yep.
Everybody's a victim to it. And what we've done is we've given the healthcare insurance industry a regional monopoly in a totally inelastic market. And what that means to everybody that might not marry well with economic terms, inelastic means that price competition has no effect. There's no price competition. So we've given them a monopoly. They're the only really powerful insurer in the area. And price is no object.
They're essentially a cartel.
Yeah.
They really are a cartel. And they create the price.
Oh,
the consumers aren't demanding the price. They setting the price they are. And it's literally a cartel. I write about it in my book. My book is called Sick and Now the Government Ruined Healthcare and How to Fix It. And I'm with you, Frank. I don't have a lot of optimism about us fixing the system. I'm not saying we shouldn't try, but there's so much money involved and the federal government's the one that screwed it up in the first place. I don't think they're going to fix it. But it's important I feel that my job is to educate consumers on how they can get around certain things. So educate and empower consumers on how to take care of their own health. And that includes financial. So these things, that's one thing that I think we've forgotten about is that it's important that patients know the finances of this and they know the details of this so that they can kind of try to at least prevent these problems, personally at least, and maybe over the long term from happening anymore.
I have a solution for you. I agree with you that we're not going to change the system very easily. As a matter of fact, one of my big complaints is that most of the people that are in the reform business are really in the advocacy business. And if you give them a solution, they don't want to talk to you because they're doing so well with their contributions and their structure. The last thing they need is a solution. Anyway, I think that this book, what I've trying to disclose is the linchpin. See, what they need to do is ration healthcare. You can't give everybody everything that they want. But on the other hand, countries that have national healthcare can budget the amount of money they're going to spend, set a floor, it's all manageable. Under the private system, what we have is what I said before. You have monopolies in an inelastic market making as much money as they can possibly figure how to collect. Their system will not stand the light of day. Help me. I'm not trying to make any money on the book. I don't care. They just have me to the point I want to disclose what's in these contracts. It's in the book. Help me help people understand that if you read the book and understand it, and maybe it could be written better. I won't say it couldn't. But the message in the middle of that is you don't owe the bill. And at least we can take care of individuals. You can give them with enough information that they can take care of themselves, because it's not hard to copy a letter out of the back of the book and send it in and watch the system kind of come apart.
Yeah, so here's your book, The Big Lie in My Healthcare Bill. It's available on Amazon. Frank, you've done a wonderful job explaining the book. I'm excited to read it.
Can I throw one thing in? The easiest way to find the book is to go to www.killabill.com, K-I-L-L, capital A, B-I-L-L.com, because there's a QR code and so forth, and it'll explain the book and take you right there. But it's the fastest way to get to it. And I really appreciate the time you've given me. And if you can help me help people.
I will be sharing this podcast routinely in the future when somebody asks me about their healthcare bill.
If you have the time, we'll do another one, because there's so much more to talk about.
Absolutely, there is. I mean, this is something that is a passion of mine. And, that's why I wrote a book about it. Mine's just a little bit different. I have free market solutions. I believe that's what fixes things. We talked about greed a little bit, and making money. I'm a capitalist.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing wrong. And I think you probably are too. There's nothing wrong with making money as long as you're transparent. But when you hide behind stuff like the health insurance industry does, and they are non-transparent about it, Apple doesn't have any problem charging you $1,500 for a phone, and people will do that, but they're transparent about it. They're not lying to you that you're gonna pay $100 and get a $1,400 phone. That's what I want. I want transparency in healthcare is what I want.
But if
and that's So anyway, you bring up a lot of good points. I'm excited to read your book and to share this podcast with other people.
I look forward to it. Hope we can talk again and go into a little more depth.
Yes. So thank you so much, Frank, for your wisdom and your knowledge today. It's been a pleasure. You've helped us realize our goal, which is to educate and empower consumers to take charge of their own health, which includes financially. So thank you so much, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Okay. You have a great day. Thanks again.
Yeah. And listeners and viewers, tune into Health Solutions. Monday, our regularly scheduled podcast, 12:30 to 1:30. Actually, this Monday, it's going to be 12 to 1. And thank you for listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Thank you.